This is Calvin Butler.
Good afternoon and welcome, Mr. Butler. This is Dallas Winslow. We will be starting the meeting in approximately 4 minutes, and you guys are first on the agenda. Welcome.
Oh, thank you, sir.
Hey, good afternoon, Dallas. Gary Stockbridge here, too.
Gary who?
Uh-huh.
You're a short timer.
I knew he wasn't. Hey, Mr. Chairman, I knew he wasn't coming to work. All right.
So it's going to be one of those meetings, eh?
I should have just come over to your house for the meeting, Gary.
Always welcome, sir.
I'm up in Dover, though.
Okay. Someone has to sit in the big seat, right?
That's correct. I've got about 2 minutes for you.
I have 12:58.
It's actually 59, but who's counting?
Gloria.
Hi, Jim.
That's all that counts.
Thank you, Jim.
No worries. Have a happy Wednesday.
Commissioner Correa, are you on the phone? Commissioner Conaway?
I'm present.
Commissioner Drexler?
I'm
And Commissioner Gray?
Good afternoon, I'm here, thank you.
Commissioner Correa?
You want me to call him? You want me to call him?
Commissioner Correa, if you're on there and listening to me, you're on mute. Yeah, please. Gloria. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Delaware Public Service Commission meeting of June 23rd. Commissioner Correa. I'm sure he'll be on momentarily. So we have 4 commissioners on the line, so we do have a quorum. And we have a great start to our meeting today. We have Mr. Calvin Butler of Exelon, who's Senior Vice President. And by the way, I should say, I guess, congratulations. I believe I read somewhere a couple months ago that you were, I don't know, it was the Wall Street Journal, I guess recognized both Exelon and Mr. Butler for their work in the electric industry. So congratulations on that recognition, Mr. Butler. And if you want to take it over and proceed with the state of the company, we would be delighted.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do appreciate that recognition. As part of the conversation today, we'll share some of those things, not about me personally, but about where the company's standing. I have the pleasure today of kicking off our state of the company. I then will turn it over to David Velasquez, who, as you all know, is CEO of Pepco Holdings. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with Gary and leave time for questions at the end of this presentation. But I do appreciate you for inviting us to join today. I'm pleased to be with you again and to talk about the tremendous benefits that Exelon is sharing for Delaware customers and communities. It's truly an honor to serve the people of Delaware. It is our privilege and, of course, our mission. I'd like, if I can, to turn to slide 4, and I'll be working off the slide deck for the first few slides of my presentation. On slide 4, you notice just a highlight of what we do here at Exelon. Exelon Utilities deliver electricity and natural gas to approximately 10 million customers in Delaware, the District of Columbia, Illinois, Maryland, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania through our Delmarva Power, BGE, Pepco, ComEd, Atlantic City Electric, and PECO subsidiaries. And year after year, our 15,300 utility employees successfully operate a vast and complex transmission and distribution system that spans more than 25,000 square miles in 4 of the largest metropolitan areas in the United States. We've done it with a track record of achieving high customer satisfaction and delivering operational excellence. I'll highlight a few of the accolades which demonstrates that track record. Exelon was named to the Dow Jones Sustainability North America Index for a 15th consecutive year in recognition of our leadership in environmental policies, commitment to employees, and track record of community investments, particularly in the underserved communities. All 6 of our utilities are ranked in the first and second quartiles for reliability. And I had the pleasure to lead the Exelon Utilities as its CEO, but it's not done without the team that you've gotten to know at DPL. We have been named Indeed.com's 50 best places to work as employees emphasize our excellent company culture, competitive pay and benefits, and mission-driven approach. And last year, we earned the designation of Best Place to Work on the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index for the 10th consecutive year. We were named Best Employer for Diversity by Forbes for the 4th year in a row and have been recognized again as one of Diversity Inc.'s top 50 companies for diversity in honor of our work hiring, retraining, and promoting women, people of color, people with disabilities, veterans, and people from the LGBTQ community. At Exelon, what we realize is that diversity drives our success, and that includes ensuring we have diverse supplier spend. Exelon and its operating companies seek out supporting business partners who reflect our diversity goals. We spent $2.7 billion with a B with diverse suppliers in 2019. In 2020, Delmarva Power purchased $103.4 million in goods and services from diversity certified suppliers, which equals 28% of our total yearly purchases. At Exelon, we are also furthering our commitment to combat climate change, underscoring it with the recent announcement of our second round of funding for our $20 million Climate Change Investment Initiative, which supports startups that develop technology to address climate change. The Climate Change Investment Initiative is in addition to Exelon and the Exelon Foundation contributing $58.4 million to support a variety of charitable organizations, $8 million of which went to COVID-19 relief funding alone. And separately, our employee giving campaign generated more than $12 million, and our employees volunteered over 133,000 hours of service at nonprofits in 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic when many avenues for volunteering were shut down. Bottom line is that Exelon is committed to partnership with local communities in which we operate to facilitate economic growth through financial contributions, volunteer work, and partnerships on large-scale projects. Now turning to slide 5, please. Our mission is to power a cleaner and brighter future for our customers and communities, and I'm proud to lead an Exelon Utilities team focused on that goal and on operational excellence. Despite one of the most challenging years on record, that mission has not changed. Our reliability is outstanding, and we continue to prioritize safety. We worked to keep customers, employees, and contractors safe before and during the pandemic, and we are prioritizing a smarter, cleaner grid and workforce initiatives. Through our Exelon utility strategy, we will focus on 1. Modernizing our energy infrastructure to ensure resilience and reliability. 2. Empowering customers and delivering world-class experiences, both customers and communities. 3. Partnering with our diverse communities with equity in mind so that we are benefiting all customers, regardless of income or zip code. And last, delivering clean and affordable energy solutions for all. We are committed to helping Delaware and the Public Service Commission accomplish its objectives. Delaware customers benefit from the collective innovation and commitment of the 15,000-plus employees across Exelon Utilities. Next slide, please. One thing I'm particularly proud of is how Exelon is transforming communities through workforce development. Exelon has a growing workforce development strategy focused on bringing economic equity and empowerment to underserved and underrepresented communities by helping create jobs and opportunities to access those jobs where too few exist today. We know that the major cities and communities we serve experience significantly higher rates of unemployment than the nation's average, along with higher rates of poverty. The communities we serve also suffer from racial disparities in high school graduation rates, access to post-secondary training or educational opportunities. And we also recognize that this has a direct effect on the overall economic prosperity of these communities. In addition, women and minority populations continue to be underrepresented in STEM fields, even though minorities are the fastest growing segment of our population, and jobs in those fields are forecasted to grow nearly 40% faster than non-STEM jobs. For those reasons, and for more, for years, all of the Exelon operating companies have had workforce development programs. These programs effectively support our operating companies' business plans and have meaningful impact in their local regions. Our workforce development programs span from middle school to high school through college, as well as work-ready adults, providing a sustained, lifelong focus on development. Currently, we have more than 100 different workforce development programs across our 6 utilities and our generation business. Since inception, more than 22,000 people have participated in Exelon's various workforce development programs. More than 1,400 have been hired at Exelon or with contractors we partner with. One such program right here in Delaware is our Path to Success program, a one-on-one career coaching, career exploration, and professional skill building opportunity. Students who successfully complete the program earn a chance for employment with Delmarva Power or a partnering contractor. One senior at St. Mark's High School, Elijah James, participated in the program last year virtually. I'm proud to say that he just graduated from the program on Monday, and he told us that he has renewed hopes for himself. Elijah said, and I quote, "I could see myself in the energy industry for many years. With all the information and hands-on experiences provided through the program, I feel that I am being prepared thoroughly and given the opportunity to make a real impact wherever I land." What this is all about. Those are the stories that I love to hear. That's equity at work. Next slide, please. By now, I know that you have heard that we are preparing to separate Exelon Utilities and Exelon Generation into 2 publicly traded companies. By taking this step, we will position Exelon Utilities for long-term success with financial and strategic independence, while continuing to foster the culture of safety, innovation, and diversity, equity, and inclusion that is core to who we are and how we operate our business, all to best serve our customers here in Delaware and in all of our jurisdictions. Until the separation is final, which will likely not be until at least the first quarter of 2022, we are still operating as one company. Your residents, our customers, will experience no changes. After the separation, we will be the nation's largest transmission and distribution-only utility, and our goal will be to focus on safely powering reliability and resilience, delivering world-class customer experiences, advancing clean and affordable energy choices, and continuing to support the communities we serve. As we undergo this process, we are committed to communicating with all of our stakeholders and will keep you informed of any additional details as they unfold. Next slide. If you'll indulge me for a few more minutes, I'd like to talk to you about what the combined strength of Exelon Utilities brings for Delaware. We work together across our fleet of utilities through our peer groups to identify best practices and align on common standards. Our comprehensive size and scope enable our operating companies to access unparalleled benefits made possible by the collaborative framework in which we operate. Exelon Utilities, in partnership with our other operating companies, has consistently demonstrated the capability to plan, finance, and execute on utility capital projects while minimizing customer rate impacts. Our utilities enjoy economies of scale in the procurement of goods, services, fuel, and purchase power. We leverage best practices in the areas of customer satisfaction, safety, and reliability. We have access to industry-leading technology and innovation, and we can access shared resources, including priority access to mobile emergency response crews, mutual assistance programs, and assist with human resource needs. Simply put, Exelon Utilities helps our operating companies deliver increased value to our customers and our communities. We bring to bear here in Delaware our tested, proven ideas and best practices from across the company. We will continue adding that kind of value even after the company separation, focusing even more squarely on our commitment to social responsibility. We saw that during our ongoing COVID-19 response, as we were able to reap the benefits of a national supply chain, getting access efficiently to vital PPE that protected Delmarva Power workers and kept customers safe over the long quarantine period. It's the same type of benefit we see when we provide mutual assistance during severe storms. Together, Exelon Utilities is more responsive and nimble, and that benefits Delmarva Power. At Exelon Utilities, we are working to reimagine and reshape what it means to be an energy provider, transforming the grid and growing our connections with the communities. We are partnering to set safety and performance standards, deliver innovations, and adopt best practices that help us meet the current and future needs of our customers, and most important, exceed their expectations. Through our Exelon Utilities strategy, we are promoting customer choice, giving our customers control of their energy and meeting their new and evolving needs. That means providing our customers the tools, energy efficiency programs, and education to take control of their energy usage and environmental impact. We stand with the majority of our customers who want cleaner air and action on climate change. So we are facilitating a clean energy transition, leading the fight against climate change and connecting customers with clean energy solutions for a sustainable and healthy future. We've put some ambitious plans in place, and when I was here last time, I shared that we had plans to electrify 30% of our combined vehicle fleet by 2025 and 50% by 2030. And I'm very pleased to tell you, Mr. Chairman and the Commission, that for the first milestone is very close to being met, and the second already is in our sights. And we also recently announced that we are going to reduce our operations-driven emissions by at least 50% by 2030 and support customers in reducing their emissions through access to clean and affordable energy solutions. To help our jurisdictions put in place clean energy solutions, we are modernizing the grid for reliability and resilience. We are hardening our system against cybersecurity attacks, extreme weather events, and increasingly, the sustained impact of climate change. We are committed to ensuring that all employees, customers, communities, and business partners fully and equitably participate in social, environmental, and economic progress. We are committed to powering the economic health and well-being of the diverse communities we serve by focusing employment opportunities and economic empowerment through workforce development, job training programs, and STEM awareness and education. wanted to let you know that we will continue to be transparent, accountable, and an ethical community partner that we've always been, maintaining these high standards of corporate governance and prioritizing the trust and confidence of you, our major stakeholder here and elsewhere. Speaking of our corporate governance, I'd be remiss if I didn't send a note of thanks to Ernest Ernie Gianastasis, who recently stepped down from the PHI board and was critical in helping us prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion through his work with the Precisionists. We've had great success with the program, and we're grateful for Ernie's vision and leadership. And I also wanted to let you know, and let me also welcome Dr. Tony Allen, President of Delaware State University, and thank him for accepting the call to join the PHI board. As I know you're aware, Tony brings a wealth of academic, business, and leadership experience, and he is a tremendous asset to the board and to our work here in Delaware. And I just want to say thank you, Tony. Again, before I close, I just want to say thank you for allowing us to serve the people of Delaware in such a comprehensive and diverse ways. I'll now hand it over to Pepco Holdings CEO, Dave Velasquez. Dave?
Calvin, thank you. And Chairman Winslow, Commissioners, good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to present the state of the company to you this afternoon. If we could flip to slide 10, I'll start my remarks there. And what I really wanted to accomplish in a few minutes is provide some overall perspective of PHI, where we are as a corporation, and then turn it over to Gary to get into some of the details around Delmarva specifically. You can see on slide 10 some of our overall corporate focus and achievements. And I just wanted to highlight a couple points on this page that build on Calvin's comments about our commitment to our customers and our communities. You'll see in the upper right-hand box there the $457 million that Pepco Holdings spent across its utility with diverse suppliers that we have, which reflected 31% of our total spend. And I want you to know that so many of those suppliers are local, and also that we're not satisfied with the 31%. And in 2021 and succeeding years, look to continue to build on that and continue to go deeper with our spend, both with diverse and local firms. But not just what we do externally, but also internally. If you look at the bottom kind of center, you see that at almost 2/3 of our recent promotions were women and people of color. The diversity of our workforce is, I think, critically important to our success, and we are working very hard to make sure that our workforce reflects the communities that we have a chance and privilege to serve. And then finally, in the bottom right-hand side, so important to us, is our 90% customer satisfaction rating, which reflects, again, our commitment to customers and making sure we're doing the right things to provide them with the service that they both want and need as well. If you flip to the next slide, on slides 11 and 12, these are 2 pages that we as a leadership team at PHI developed, and it's exact same copy that we use both internally and externally. And what we've tried to lay out here in the next 2 pages, it starts with our purpose on the left-hand side of 11. And Calvin had talked about this, that the Exelon purpose is powering a cleaner and brighter future for our customers and communities. And then want to step through, what it is that we think our commitment needs to be, both to ourselves, to our customers, and our communities in order to achieve that purpose. And then in a minute or so, we'll flip to the next slide, which talks more about our vision and our specific focus for this upcoming year. When you look at the commitment, I won't go through the whole slide and read each piece of it, but want to make a couple comments about our commitment. Gary's going to talk more about reliability and how our reliability across Delaware has continued to improve, and how we're meeting, all of our metrics and commitments there. But that is the result of deliberate investments we're making both on our distribution system and also in our transmission system to make sure that our system is both reliable and also resilient in the face of increasingly more strong storms as a result of climate change as well.
Excuse me,
and then
David.
When you look at yes.
David, I apologize for interrupting. This is Commissioner Gray, and unfortunately, there is someone who is on the line that is not muted, and it's very disturbing for the conversation on the purpose. I would really like to ask everyone to ensure that they're muted. It's a disservice to the presenter otherwise. Thank you.
Commissioner Gray, thanks for that. Moving on, I wanted to make a comment about when we look at equitable and inclusive and the work that we do both internally with our employees, but then also outside. And as we think about what we can do in the communities, it's both short-term and longer-term actions. And I'll mention, which Calvin did already, and I know Gary's going to touch on, our Path to Success program, where we just had the graduation on Monday. And again, I won't go into details. When I think about affordability, we have done, and again, Gary will comment on this, a lot of work recognizing the impact that COVID has had on our customers to help provide our customers with options, help in paying for their bills, managing their energy usage, but then also helping customers through our charitable contributions just with the basic necessities of life as well. Gary will also be commenting on some of the innovative things we're doing in D.C., whether it's the teen warehouse or also what we're doing with, I'll say, smart streetlights in the city of Wilmington as well. If you flip to the next slide, I'll just comment on the left-hand side, you see our vision. And our vision, is not something we created in a vacuum, but it was designed to reflect both the priorities of the commission and also the state's goals. And you can see there, I think it aligns very well around clean, sustainable, resilient energy future, the need for thriving communities, world-class customer experience, the economic opportunity, equity, and continued growth. And then on the right-hand side is what we're focused on in order to achieve that vision in 2021. And again, I won't read all the points in that slide, on that side of the slide, but I think we've covered most of them already. The last slide that I have on slide 13 builds on what Calvin had said about the value that Exelon has brought to PHI. And you can see where pre-merger 2015, where we ranked on some key operating metrics, both around safety, reliability, customer service, customer satisfaction, and where PHI now ranks at the end of 2020. A huge improvement. And I will tell you from having been part of this company for many years, I have seen the value that Exelon has brought, and we would not be where we are without the best practices to help the talent that Exelon has brought to bear as well. And you can see on the left, PHI, the best on record performance and outage frequency. Delmarva Power was ranked third in residential customer satisfaction by J.D. Power. We had top decile performance in call abandonment rates, so customers are able to get through to us as well. So on a host of metrics, great improvement. Very proud of what the team has done to do that. And the last thing I'll mention is sometimes we get questions on how we do our project design review. What's the internal planning process look like at PHI? And again, a lot of improvements had come from Exelon. And just to briefly comment on that process, all projects go through, different stages of design, and we have a 3-phase process where a project has to go through 3 different sets of approvals, starting with preliminary design, I'll say more complete design, and then final design and final budget numbers. And at each phase of that, there are challenge sessions, where not just folks in that group, but across the utility comment on it. If you are sponsoring a project, you need to provide the technical justification, the justification from a customer standpoint, and you also need to provide alternatives that have been vetted and why you chose the alternative you did. So it's a very rigorous process that we have internally to make sure that the projects that we're bringing forward and putting in our budget are ones that are, I'll say, the best projects and the best solutions for the issues and problems that the system has and that our customers face as well. So with that, I will end, and I want to turn it over to Gary. I think you all know Gary needs no introduction to go deeper into some of the details around Delmarva Power.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. And good afternoon, Chair Winslow and the commissioners. Really, really happy to be here as always at our annual presentation. I do want to echo some comments Dave just made, and that that he and I share a lot of our history, and have seen a lot of the same things. And this, being part of the Exelon family of companies continues to really drive value, not only to Delmarva Power, but to specifically to Delaware customers. And so it's exciting to be part of that family of companies. I'll be starting on page 15. And won't cover all the details on this slide. Our customer base and employee base stayed relatively consistent in previous years. But two of the things I'm most excited about on this slide, one is the customer satisfaction. We continue to be a leader in the PHI family within Delmarva Power with our customer satisfaction. And I'll have a slide later on giving a little bit more detail on that. But that's something that obviously day in and day out, every one of our employees focuses on. And it's great to see the results coming back from our customer continue to be strong there. And then the other one is our diverse spend. It's been mentioned both by Calvin and Dave, the level of diverse spend, but it wasn't that long ago that we were at 16% diverse spend in Delmarva Power area, 16, 17%, and here we are at 28% and heading even stronger north of that in the coming years. So we're really excited. It does take an awful lot of time working with diverse suppliers to help them build their businesses and create a strong network within the region. And we really see that paying off with really solid results. And as you heard, there's a commitment to go even further. So those are some highlights for this slide. On slide 16, hopefully we're all ready to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic and get as close to whatever the new normal looks like as possible as we go into the balance of this year and the following year. But we are still dealing with, and will still be dealing with our customers struggling to come out of the impact of that pandemic. And so I would put Delaware at the forefront of all the states that we've done business in terms of really getting us back to normal in the area of helping customers with their bills as quickly as possible. The average delinquency is not as bad as other states in terms of it has increased, but not as much. I really want to thank Drew for his leadership and support and help in working with the Housing Authority. I know we're extremely close to some of the federal funds being released, and we're going to have mechanisms to really help out a lot of our customers. And my hope is that we see those average delinquencies start to drive back to their normal level. But like everything, it takes a whole community when these things happen to work together. And I can't thank enough both the staff and the public advocate for all the work they've done to work with us and help us along in this process. We continue to focus a great deal on outreach and education, making sure our customers understand what's available. We're trying to be as flexible as possible. None of us want to shut off a customer. It's a lose for all of us. And at the end of the day, if we can get them the help they need, then it's a win. And as soon as they get a chance to talk to us, we seem to be able to do that. There are a good bit of funds out there, both state and federal. And the real key is to be working together to help communicate that to our customers. So I'm really happy with where Delaware is on coming out of this crisis and the work that we're doing within the state. On slide 17, there's been a good bit of activity in 2020 and early 2021 here, especially legislatively on the clean energy front. Obviously, in 2020, we did launch our energy efficiency programs, and I know we've been in to speak to you about those. They're exceeding goals, and we're extremely pleased with the outcome of the programs. We continue to work closely with the SEU to make sure we're cross-promoting programs, because really, when you look at the whole family of programs, it's between the SEU and the utility, and we need to be working closely together. And then legislatively, we've been working quite a bit, and our role is the same as it's always been, which is we help our legislators understand the impact of the decisions they're making. We try to give them as much data as we can as they review with us where they're heading. We try to review the data and the implications of those decisions and help them along. We're very excited about hitting the new targets that are put in. We're currently at 20%. Which is roughly just under 18% standard direction and 2.25% for solar. and we'll be moving to 40% by 2035, 10% of which will be solar. And again, our team is geared up and ready to hit those numbers. We wouldn't, I think, in the process of working with the legislature, we always make sure that, what they're asking us to do is something we can achieve, and so we're excited to be able to make that. We do have, as a result of the merger, you may recall we have our third tranche of the wind RFP coming out. That's not something that we have to accept, but it's something that gives us a chance to test the water, so to speak, about where the cost is coming in and see if they could be part of the portfolio. And then, you may have been following closely some of the work around community solar. We do have active community solar programs in many of the states that we do business in, so we do feel we're someone that can bring to bear a good bit of experience of having done it elsewhere. And so we did work closely with the legislature to help in the community solar to hopefully make it available, solar available to more Delaware customers, and we look forward to seeing how that goes and being part of the solution where possible. And then, as always, I know, Chairman Winslow, you've always wanted to keep our pulse on the offshore wind activity, and I can tell you we're between New Jersey and Maryland, there's a great deal of activity, and we do periodically meet with Deepwater, or now under the Ørsted banner, and Ørsted themselves, often to talk about interconnection and just where we need to work together to help communicate to our customers what's going on, and understand what they're doing, so we will be ready for it. And so we always are at the table with them, making sure we're getting those updates. And it is likely that the Maryland projects will make landfall and interconnection in Delaware, and so obviously we want to be as close as we can to that process as it moves forward, so we understand how that's going to play out. So again, a lot of activity in the clean energy front, and we try to stay front and center to that. On slide 18, this is a fairly common slide that we have each year, and that outlines our charitable contributions, and they are on the high side again for 2020, mainly reflecting some of the COVID-specific funds that we brought to bear for COVID-specific issues within the state, and bumped up our contributions for that. And then we still are carrying some of the merger-related commitments to workforce development, which I'll talk on another slide a little bit more about that. We continue to have a number of our employees involved in leadership positions, and even though volunteering has become more difficult, we've still had over 10,000 hours of volunteerism, even though a lot of the face-to-face volunteerism was either prohibited or non-existent. We did work with our partners to find ways that we could do it virtually, or provide material that's done at home and provided to the nonprofit to help them out. So we've done what we can to make sure that we're continuing to foster a culture of volunteerism within our employee base. On slide 19, I mentioned this previously about how proud we are of our customer satisfaction results. We do, in Delmarva Power, we do take a lot of pride in trying to be at the front of the pack in the PHI family, and even where possible in the Exelon family of companies. We have currently a 92% customer satisfaction rating, and on the reliability side, 97%, which again was a bit of a challenge. As you know, a lot of folks working from home, there was a much higher demand on reliability with their own personal homes to make sure the lights stayed on so the kids could take advantage of the remote connections to school, and many who are even still working at home had to have that connectivity, and without the electricity, all that goes down. And so reliability became in high demand, so to speak, but from the statistics and the numbers, it looks like we're still continuing to deliver and exceed our customers' expectations relative to providing them their service. So, number of recognitions from both J.D. Powers and also our MSI survey, which is our traditional survey we've done for years for annual ratings. So still getting strong results there. On slide 20, Dave mentioned earlier, the investments in reliability continue to pay off, and I would say it's not only the investments, but it's just being part of the culture of Exelon, where there's a high premium placed on serving our customers with reliable electric service. We spend every day doing evaluating where we have outages, what we can do better, and continually trying to improve. You'll see that in general, we've clearly exceeded the state's expectations, both in frequency and durations, but we also are holding steady over the past several years and have reached, I think, a good plateau, safely underneath the state requirements, but also with a good buffer there, and again, delivering the satisfaction results that we saw on the previous page from our customers. So it seems to be a good balance, and I know we always work closely with staff and the advocate to achieve that right balance between investments and reliability and costs. On slide 21, coming out of 2020, I know a few of our commissioners were with us in 2020 when we had Isaias and the follow-on storm that hit in northern Delaware. It was amazing, the devastation that storm dealt us in that area, and I really appreciate it. It's always great to see the commissioners out in the field, understanding what our employees are going through when we try to restore. It always helps. It helps us to encourage our workforce when they see you out there, but it also, I know, hopefully helps you in terms of getting the messaging out when folks have questions about the restoration time. So coming right out of that, we're obviously doing a lot of work to make sure we're ready for this year's storm season, and that work started months ago. And in addition to our traditional summer readiness, which involves making sure all of our projects are complete, making sure our drills are complete, making sure we're ready and staffed for our second rolls. We also this year conducted what we refer to as a major storm response improvement project, and I do believe that will become more of an annual event for us as we go forward. Because we found such value in it, and really what it is it's identified a number of the major areas that we needed to work on, and there were 7 work streams, and in those areas we accumulated best practices from all of the utilities across Exelon, and then drive them into our performance and into our drills and into our execution as the storm season approaches. And so, for instance, one of the ones last year we worked with DelDOT last year and tried something innovative around assigning crews to DelDOT, because as you can imagine, when some of the big storms come through, the roads are closed, and we have a kind of a mutual relationship with them where we can't get back to do our restoration until they clear the roads. And so working closely with DelDOT has always been an issue, and so assigning crews directly to them where they can work together really paid off. And so when we do those things and find out that they're effective, we not only try to continue to do those in Delaware, but we try to spread those across the other companies. So best practices can come from any one of our utilities, and this major storm response improvement project on an annual basis will take place between storm seasons and take advantage of all the fresh learnings coming out of the previous season to make sure we hit the ground running for the following season. On slide 22, this is an update on our gas business. I'd like to just quickly talk about a couple of the things on the gas side. As a reminder, we do manage nearly 3,600 miles of natural gas distribution pipeline, and so it's quite a bit of a system to oversee from a safety perspective. You can see some of our performance from a reliability standpoint. In 2020, Delmarva invested more than $59 million in the company's natural gas system to maintain safe and reliable service for our customers. And in 2019, that was about $43 million, so it was up from that in our 2020 spend. We completed about 55,000 seasonal leak inspections across the service area, and that's about consistent with every year. And then, as I know your staff is aware, part of our ongoing efforts to support the safety of our gas system, we developed a pipeline integrity management program, basically to inspect natural gas mains, perform regular maintenance on valves, regulator stations and equipment, and install or replace natural gas mains. So an awful lot of work goes into that. We do consider ourselves a leader in the industry for our response on gas odors. So you can see the 99.96. That was a little bit down from 99.98 in 2019, but we did have a number more calls in 2020 than we did in 2019, and still puts us among the best in the industry. And then a big focus on modernization. Each year we do modernize more than, close to 8 miles of natural gas mains across our service area, replacing existing natural gas mains with new plastic pipes, which obviously enhances our safety, is more durable, improves reliability. So, and in 2020, we did complete about 6.5. 2021, we'll have 6.8. And that effort began in 2006. So we're continuing to work on that. We also retired about a little over 20 miles of mains and services, in the 2018 to 2020 timeframe. And so, I think we're well ahead on our timeline, about 5 years ahead of our original schedule for cast iron main and bare steel replacement. So a lot of work going on the gas side to maintain a safe, reliable system for our customers. On next slide, 23. I lost my slide number on the bottom of that one. On slide 23. It's a little bit of an update on our LNG, and I know we were down talking to you a bit about the LNG, but just as a reminder, back in 2019 we did discuss adding a second liquefied natural gas facility in the southern part of our territory, and that went by the wayside. As we continued planning for it, the costs were coming in higher than anticipated, which had us going back to the drawing boards and looking for other alternatives. The solutions evaluated included leveraging a planned upgrade at the existing Wilmington LNG facility. And this option was identified, offering the same operational benefits and additional net financial benefits to the customer. So as I think you know from our update, we have changed courses to that project, and that should be completed by 2026. On the next slide, spoke a little bit earlier about workforce development, and this has become a real strong point across all of Exelon, recognizing that not only is it important for our future workforce, but it's also important to all the states we do business in to try to come out of the COVID-19 and the issues around job loss. We want to play our part in trying to spur on the workforce within the state. I think many of you know I've been chair of the Workforce Development Board under both Governor Markell and Governor Carney, and so I've been fortunate enough to stay very close to that. It was mentioned earlier that we developed this Path to Success program, and so I won't go into too much more on that, other than it was really exciting to hear from the graduates, to go through the graduation, and to recognize that they're well on their way to a potential career in the energy industry. And when you saw each of them, they're incredibly excited about that. So I think it's the beginning of a real exciting program for the company, and we look forward to kind of carrying that out in years to come. We also work very, very closely with our partners, recognizing that sometimes, we can be part of a training program that can support others. And to that end, we are working with Deltec. We do expect there's a potential for additional federal funds to come in for workforce development. And we do believe that the energy industry, in partnership with some of our sister entities such as energy efficiency and renewable energy fields, could use some of the same skill sets. So we're working closely with Deltec to make sure we are ready if those funds become available to develop training programs that can be deployed here in Delaware. And so you can count on us always to be at the forefront on workforce development, making sure not only that we're preparing for our workforce of the future, but also that we're helping the state come out of the COVID-19 impact and improve the joblessness in the state through our participation. And then the next slide 25, that's an exciting one, and I do appreciate the engagement of the commissioners. I know you've all been staying close to that, especially at our event we had, I guess it was about a week ago. We actually had a chance to celebrate with the community center all the activity was going on. Commissioner Gray, your wife was kind enough to stop over and say hello and give her regrets that you couldn't make it, but she participated, and I think each of you have stayed engaged in one way or another in the process. Commissioner Drexler, I know you stayed close to all this as well. But up at the team warehouse, we were able to deploy an ag pod that was exciting for the community, a combination of solar and energy storage on the roof, and a vehicle-to-grid project that we work with closely with the university on. And all of that really came together in a kind of a comprehensive look at what the future can bring in our industry. And so we developed a number of partners in that initiative. Both Del State and University of Delaware are partnered with us in one form or another, whether it's curriculum development or the technology. And we think at the end of the day, that's going to, for the kids that participate there, it's going to be a real view into the future of what this industry can bring to bear and how they could be part of that. So that's the last of my slides I was going to go into detail on. We did include slide 26. Commissioner Correa, I know every year you ask us to make sure we put in some of the traditional financial metrics, and so this year we did put those on in slide 26, and obviously look for any input about additional metrics that you'd like to see as we go forward, but we'll try to make sure we keep it as part of the packet as we go forward, just to be responsive to your questions in years previous. So with that, I want to make sure we left a little bit of time for Q&A. Let me turn it back to Calvin to walk us through that. And thank you, Commissioners. Really, really a pleasure to be with you today.
Thank you, Gary. Mr. Chairman, that completes our readout, and we'd love to answer any questions that you will have, you or the other commissioners would have for us.
Commissioner Correa, are you present? Commissioner Correa?
Yes, I'm here, and Mr. Chairman, if you allow me to, I'll start my comments on this presentation.
Yes, please, Mike.
Okay. So I'll start with the last slide, number 26. As Mr. Stockbridge has mentioned, I see the financial information and for the first time, and it's very, very good. I'm happy in the sense that your debt ratio, 50-50 rounded, is good for the capital intensive industry, and at least it gives the reader some sort of a financial measurement that we all need reliability of the electricity, and we also need affordability of the electricity, but we also need your company to be strong financially so as to survive a little bit of ups and downs and financial storms. And your ratios speak for itself. Bond rating is also speaking, not very loudly, but is speaking well for you. And I am happy that, Gary, you have started this, and I request you to keep up with this and continue. My second comment is about the whole structure of Exelon, Pepco, and Delmarva. What I've seen here in all slides is a big resource of Exelon. So many resources available from Exelon just because it's a large company. It's a big company, and they have the resources. And then those resources filter down to local company, Delmarva. And so we have the advantage of the large company, very large company, and we have advantage of a homegrown small company where we can call Gary and say, this is happening, what can we do? That combination of resources of the large company and the approachability and actions of a small company is a very fine economic combination which benefits, number one, the customers, and it benefits the company also. So reliability and affordability is great. But all other things we saw on all these slides, we appreciate your being big, part of the big, and we appreciate your being part of the local. And that is a very, very good economic combination. Very fine. We see it sometimes, but then the things fall apart. In your case, it is working very well. So I want to thank you for a very good presentation, and thank you for the financial information, and thank you for being very large, and at the same time, thank you for being very small.
Commissioner, thank you. This is Calvin Butler. Thank you. What we want to emphasize is that it's all about being local and being engaged and being involved in facets of the community. And your recognition of those efforts is significant because we don't take it lightly. The local leadership, the presence of the local leadership team, the volunteerism, the philanthropy, in addition to the operational excellence. I talk a lot about the power of the platform, of what Exelon brings, but it's really about connecting locally that we feel it makes a difference for our company. So thank you very much for that acknowledgement and recognition.
Yes, you're welcome.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my comments.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Correa. Anybody else like to make any comments?
Yes, this is Commissioner Drexler, Kim Drexler, and I just want to commend you on Team Warehouse event. It was extraordinary, and you could feel the energy there. It was a wonderful event. The fact that teams are involved, the building is beautiful. It was a wonderful presentation. The fact that we got to hear from one of the teams was extraordinary, and she's amazing, and I really, really enjoyed it, so thank you for that. My question is for Gary Stockbridge, and I noticed on your slide 20 the significant improvements that you're showing in reducing the frequency and duration of the outages. And I'm wondering if that correlates to the 93% satisfaction and if that trend is an uptrend for you.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. The statistics drive the customer satisfaction. There's two things our customers traditionally look for us most heavily, and that is, keeping rates reasonable and keeping the lights on, and when they go out, get them back on as quickly as possible. So there's a very, very close correlation, and we've seen it. We've seen our customer satisfaction go up as we improve on our reliability. And so all of that really pays off, and you can see it in the one specific measure that measures the customer satisfaction around reliability being in the very high 90s over the past several years. So there is a very close correlation to that. We do feel it's one of the most important things for our customers. That's why we focus so much on it. Absolutely.
I'm very surprised that we're ranked third for residential. Delmarva is ranked third for residential customer satisfaction. I mean, who's better? I want to know that. Who's doing it better?
Yeah. I'd have to look, and I do believe, I don't have the data right handy, but I do believe they're extremely close numbers, and we've fluctuated up and down in that top three, and it's usually not, we're not off each other by more than a point or two.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. That concludes my comments.
No, thank you.
Any other comments?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Gray. May I?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And if you guys will allow me to call you Calvin, Dave, and Gary, your professional and thoughtful leadership certainly helped make our jobs much easier. So sincere thanks from me to you and to your teams. And I would just only ask that you keep up the great work. And I've worked for years with Gary before this life and another life, and his devotion to community service here is unsurpassed. And the fact that my wife, city councilwoman, attended the event at the Teen Warehouse is nothing better than setting up a teen warehouse for teens run by teens. And the development that you're investing in the community, in the human resources of the community, hopefully will pay off for you as well in the future. So thanks for the presentation. Very comprehensive, very well done. You should each be very proud. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
We heard that Mr. Slater's name was mentioned by Mr. Stockbridge. Gary, Drew, do you have any words to say?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I apologize. I may jump around, but I was taking a lot of notes during the presentation. Mr. Butler, you mentioned diversity and workforce diversity, but also diversity of suppliers. I know the report for workforce diversity has now expired, and I hope we can continue those reports, but also include reports on the diversity of suppliers. It's something that I think would be very meaningful to understand the supply chain going forward. So it's just a comment I had there. But when we talk about a cleaner and brighter future and a clean energy transition, I wonder, and also with LNG and combating climate change, I wonder if there's been any conversations about the future of your natural gas business, given clean energy goals, combating climate change, as well as the policy goals.
Okay, I'll jump in here. This is Calvin. Yes. Then to you, let me address the first comment on the supplier diversity. Is both Gary and Dave stated is that we have made tremendous progress, but we are still moving forward and developing. I'll share with you our goal that we talk about across our LRP for supplier diversity. Our target is 40% across all of our operating companies. And we feel that we will continue to drive that, and we will always update those numbers because it is a metric that we track, and we're being very intentional about our efforts. So I have no concern and no problem with sharing that on an annual basis with you. On the gas business, to your question, gas is a significant part of our portfolio, and we are committed to our gas business. And to be quite honest with you, we don't believe we can move as a country without having gas as part of that portfolio. As you know, at Delmarva Power, there's been an effort, I think it's within the next 5 years, all of the infrastructure, the gas pipelines have been replaced to reduce the leakage that's coming out of that system. That is also helping us meet our greenhouse gas reduction goals. That's one. And we're also investing in researching new technology within the gas business to continue to look at ways to utilize that asset in the future to continue to have our environmental footprint become less and less. We see gas definitely as part of our mix, and we will continue to look at investing to make sure it continues to get greener and greener. I'll ask Dave or Gary if they have any comments that they'd like to share further.
No, Calvin, thanks. Just agree with what you said there. There's a lot of conversations going on around renewable natural gas, hydrogen, different research consortiums that we're involved in as a corporation to see, make sure the technology works in a safe way and make sure that we're staying very current on, I'll say, the cutting edge of what's going on to help reduce the carbon footprint of our gas systems.
Yeah, Drew, is Gary. Nothing else to add. I think Dave and Calvin really covered it well.
I just had a couple other quick questions. I appreciate the gas response. When we talk about effectively managing costs, this is a softball question, I think. But is managing costs, is that part of your normal course of business? Something you do every day?
Yes.
I figured. So that's a softball
question. That was a softball question. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It is absolutely something that is part of all the conversations we have. I think you heard it reflected also in our comments about affordability and being very focused on affordability for our customers. And we see that, core part of our mission. And to your point, that drives on how effectively and efficiently we can operate.
Yeah, that was my next question. We talk about affordability and cost-effective service, and so I was wondering if we knew, before, given increased spending, understanding what customers are going to see, both as goals and as the impact on their bills. And I also want to thank you, Gary, for your comments on the federal assistance and arrears. It's something we work on every day to try and bring that to fruition. And I did go back and look at last year's report, and you have increased satisfaction, reliability, and in keeping outages to a minimum. So I just want to commend you on that. But on your reliability improvements, with these numbers in the first quartile, does the company have a target for safety and safety outside of the commission's regulatory requirements? That, we know that there's increased spending. The caps have come off. Last year we had said, the projection was to spend more in the next 3 years than in the last 5 years. So is there some sort of a company target for safety and safety if you're already in the first quartile? Is it 75 as you are now? Is there some sort of number?
I think we have not, for each of our jurisdictions, defined an exact number. One of the comments I would make, we were talking about affordability. The other thing we have to do is balance a number of things, right? Affordability is one, but if the level of reliability, and think about how more and more people are using electric vehicles, more and more people are working from home, that the level of reliability that our customers expect is something that's also increasing. We also see the push as well towards sustainability, and Calvin touched on that. What are we doing ourselves with our own company emissions? What are we doing to help customers reduce it? So there is a balancing act, I think, between all of them. But to your point, we do pay attention as we think about our investment plans around what impact it would have to customers. We think about what on their bills, and the rates. And I think you also have to focus not just on rates, but on bills. We invest in energy efficiency. There could be a slight increase in rate, but because of decreased usage, the overall bill comes down. So we try to balance all those factors. The other thing is the system is not static in the sense that if we stop making investments, you would see those numbers creep up. We continue to have, our infrastructure continues to age, trees continue to grow, things like that. So in order to even keep reliability where it's at, we need to continue to make investments to do that. But I think it's not, there's not a specific number we have picked to say we're going to get to 70 minutes or 71 minutes specifically.
Thanks. I only have two more comments. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, Drew, I was just going to add that I think the distribution planning process that, as you know, we work very closely on, is a great venue for us to continually have those discussions. As Dave said, it's a little bit of an art, and I think some of that, a good bit of that, plays out in the distribution planning process that you were very instrumental in driving, and that our teams have been working together on. Because I do think it provides us a venue to make sure there are no surprises, to talk about what are going to be the investments and what are going to be the implications. So I do think that plays into the mix as well.
Thanks. I only have two comments real quick. On Connected Wilmington, and this isn't meant to be a critique at all, but in the future when there are events like that, I would appreciate if we're invited. I think that I read about that, and I saw it in the slides today, and I thought that would have been really neat to attend. So I just wanted to put that out there. We'd be happy to attend in the future. And then,
no, Drew, this is Gary. That's my bet on that one, and I'll commit to you to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to be a critique, just kind of
Yep.
We'd love to attend. And then lastly, kind of, for the commission, during the state of the company, that was really good information. And it made me think maybe we should have like a state of the DPA or something like that, because we do a lot of great work, and one of our goals is to try and show the work that we're doing in collaboration with utilities, but also separately, other than just our annual reports. So I just put that plug out there that maybe we consider that in the future too. Thank you, commissioners, for allowing me the opportunity and for addressing my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Gentlemen, question for you. Texas had a hard time recently. Did you guys make any adjustments as a result of what occurred in Texas?
What I can tell you, Mr. Chairman, is that we looked at all of our systems, and what you can be assured of, and the other commissioners can be assured of, because of the requirements and safeguards that are put in place across our jurisdictions, that would not happen in Delaware or anywhere else across our system, because the requirements to winterize our system and test our system prior to any cold going into the winter season is there, and we do go through the process. In addition, we do the exact same thing as you know for summer readiness. So our system is built for the extremes, and we do balance that and test our systems on a regular basis. So what happened in Texas, that would not happen here.
Thank you very much, Calvin. Gentlemen, I was driving on Route 52 just after the storm in Newcastle County, Delaware, and I was absolutely amazed that I could actually drive on the road because it looked like Sherman's army had come through and absolutely destroyed every telephone pole, every utility pole, lines down everywhere. But what I really did see was that the road had been cleared. Delmarva was working closely with DelDOT, and it was, I think, just sort of miraculous that I was able to drive up Route 52 to see a client in the afternoon. So I would just like to say thank you to all the Delmarva Power and excellent employees who, do that mighty good work. It was just great. And this is probably the best briefing of state of the company I've seen in 17 years. So congratulations, gentlemen. I think you knocked it out of the park, and your participation is much appreciated. And we, of course, expect you to continue your excellent work. And
Thank you very much.
And I would say, since this might be the last time I have the opportunity to say it, that that guy there, Gary Stockbridge, I wish you were here in person so I could congratulate you on just really a remarkable career. And then, of course, Commissioner Gray hit it on the head when he mentioned the fact that he does a wee bit of community service. Gary, thank you so much for all you do, and we all send our best wishes to you. And I know at some point in time, in the not too distant future, you'll be going to Florida. Best wishes.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate those. Yeah, I appreciate those comments. They're great. Thank you.
Mr. Butler?
And I'd be remiss if I didn't, and you know this, it's a team. I mean, we have one of the best teams going, and it's a team approach that really gives us the success that I'm able to benefit from. So but I take your comments not only personally, but on behalf of all of Delmarva Power.
Yeah, and Mr. Butler, just so you're informed, I just got reappointed to a 5-year term, and I make a lot of money, so I'm not eligible to replace Gary.
Okay, understand.
We wish you, he's going to be hard to replace, and but best wishes. And commissioners, anything else? Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Back to the agenda. Number 3 is the reading of the meeting minutes of June 2nd, 2021. Does any commissioner wish to make any changes or corrections to the minutes? Commissioner Correa.
I move that we adopt the minutes of our meeting of June 2nd, 21.
I second.
Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries. The consent agenda, is there any item on the consent agenda that a commissioner wishes to have placed on the regular agenda? Commissioner Conaway.
Move that we adopt the consent agenda as presented.
Commissioner Gray will second.
Is there any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? Hearing none. Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The matter is passed, approved. On the regular agenda, number 1 is in the matter of the application of Delmarva Power and Light Company for authority to implement a distribution system improvement charge for natural gas distribution. We have proposed order number 9824, and we have Dawn Kurtz Crompton for Delmarva Power and Light.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman, Board of Commissioners. This is Dawn Kurtz Crompton. On behalf of Delmarva Power and Light, my colleague Brian Jordan will be handling the gas application, and I will be handling the second matter, the electric application, if that's all right with Your Honor.
It certainly is. Certainly is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. This is Brian Jordan, and I'm appearing on behalf of Delmarva Power and Light in this first matter and its natural gas district application. And what I want to start with is letting the Commission know that Delmarva is asking the Commission to sign an order that will allow a utility to include an over-recovery or an under-recovery in its district rate, even when that rate has been reset to zero. And the annual reconciliation process that's described in the district statute, which is at 26 Del Code 315B8, already allows this level of accuracy under most circumstances. And from Delmarva's perspective, it should apply in all circumstances, even when the district rate is reset to zero under subsection B9. That's the first question. The second question before the Commission today is that if the Commission adopts Delmarva's position that a utility must carry forward this under-recovery or the over-recovery, then Delmarva is also asking that the Commission adopt its method for calculating this under-recovery or over-recovery because we believe it more accurately ensures that customers pay no more and no less than the cost to serve them. And before getting into the legal arguments for this, I'd like to direct the Commission's attention to a couple of the filings that we have made as a way to streamline and organize what the Commissioners are going to hear today. Because what the Commission has in front of it are several proposed orders that have been submitted by Delmarva, and there are also proposed orders that have been submitted by staff. And the first document that I want to draw the Commission's attention to is a filing that we made with these proposed orders, and specifically the cover page that has two boxes in it. And these boxes are graphs that outline the different orders in front of the Commission today. And then in each column has the question that is being presented, along with the answer and where that will take us. And so, for example, what your honors would see in the first box are the three orders for the gas district application. And as you can see from the first question, it asks whether the Commission accepts DPL's interpretation of the statute that would allow an over-under collection. And under that, you can see that there are several different answers for there, yes or no. And depending on how the Commission rules will take us to the next question. So what I would propose is that we present our argument first on whether the Commission will adopt Delmarva's interpretation of this statute. Because if the Commission says yes, then we have the second question of, okay, how do we calculate that recovery? Of course, if the Commission says no, then we don't have to get to how it's calculated because it won't be permitted. And at that point, then we can move on to the next agenda item. So, and also, of course, take questions that your honors will have about this. And so with that in mind, if the Commission is amenable to that, I can certainly start with the legal arguments that Delmarva has that support its request.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Mr. O'Brien.
As I had mentioned, what Delmarva is asking for really here is a question of statutory interpretation and how it's going to read the district statute, specifically subsections B8 and B9. And what we're asking is that you read those in conjunction. For ease of reference, on June 7th, Delmarva filed its supplemental filing to its district applications. And if you go to pages 4 and 5 in that document, you'll see the statutes there set out for the Commission. It starts at the bottom of page 4 with B8, and it goes into the top of page 5 is subsection B9. And what we really have to wrestle with here is how to read these statutes in light of the rules of statutory interpretation that the Delaware courts have instructed us to follow. And so what those rules say is we treat statutes and we interpret them in both text and context. And the first rule says that you have to, quote, read statutes by giving their language its reasonable and suitable meaning while avoiding patent absurdity, end quote. The Supreme Court of Delaware has put that in other words to say statutes should be read to avoid, quote, such unreasonable or absurd consequences as to compel a conviction that they could not have been intended by the legislature, end quote. And finally, when it comes to reading statutes, you have to read each part of the statute, quote, in light of every other part or section to produce a harmonious whole, end quote. And so what we have when we look at these statutes, particularly with subsection B8, there's really can be no dispute that the mandatory annual audit and reconciliation process described there exists to identify the actual cost of service related to DSIC projects, which in turn provides for accuracy for rate-making purposes. Under the current interpretation of subsection B9, however, this important tool does not apply when base rates are reset to zero. So in other words, the current interpretation of B9 creates a carve-out that says this process of determining actual DSIC costs for purposes of recouping an under-recovery or refunding to ratepayers an over-recovery will not apply. And from Delmarva's perspective, this reading violates the rules of statutory interpretation that I had just mentioned. First, there's nothing in either one of these subsections that's expressly limiting recouping an under-recovery or refunding an over-recovery. In fact, the word shall appears in subsection B8, and we know that that is a mandatory word, which means it provides courts and agencies with no discretion. Whatever follows the word shall has to happen. It's required. But despite that, with the current reading of B9, it says that this process that's set out in B8 is not mandatory, but only applies most of the time. Second, this current reading of subsection B9 does not lead to that harmonious whole called for by the Delaware courts. Instead, it says that when DSIC rates are, or when base rates are implemented, the DSIC rate is reset to zero, basically saying that it overrides or eliminates the annual reconciliation process with these recoveries that are set out in B8. So rather than reading this DSIC statute as a harmonious whole, the current interpretation puts some sections ahead of others or replaces some with others. Third, the current interpretation will always lead to the sort of, quote, absurd and unreasonable consequence, end quote, that the Delaware Supreme Court cautioned against. It creates an unnecessary carve-out that eliminates an undeniably important method to assess the actual cost of these DSIC projects because it zeroes out a utility's ability to recoup the under-recovery or refund with interest the over-recovery. And I think just one small example of this distinction that's really critical for gas and electric utilities involves weather variances, because these are likely riskier for gas and electric utilities than it is for other utilities in Delaware. And it leads to a greater impact of any potential over or under recovery. And it makes a true-up that much more critical to make sure that the customers and the ratepayers pay no more and pay no less than the cost to serve them. And finally, what it really comes down to here is that the current interpretation of B9 is unreasonable. It says if there is an under-recovery on authorized expected revenues, the loss falls on the utility. However, it also says that there is an over-recovery, the utility does not have to refund it to the ratepayer. And so at that point, the loss falls on the ratepayer. So in other words, with this current interpretation of B9, it's always going to leave someone in a position to bear that loss. And it doesn't have to be that way. It's unnecessary because the logical way to read these sections, B8 and B9, is to read them together. That gets the commission to the harmonious whole that I mentioned earlier. While interim rates may reset the DSIC rate to zero, subsection B9 does not say that an under-recovery or an over-recovery shall be zeroed out. Instead, it's Delmarva's position that we should read B8 the way it was intended, that the annual reconciliation of an over-recovery or an under-recovery to recoup monies must happen in all circumstances without conditions. That's the only way to be in line with the rules of statutory interpretation, and also to ensure that there's a fair outcome to cover the actual cost of the DSIC project, and when the circumstance happens with an over-recovery, to refund it to the ratepayers with interest. And in staff's memo, there are a few responses to Delmarva's position that I'd like to touch on. And I think the chief one is where the response says that the General Assembly could have added words to this language, and it could have said, quote, other than the annual reconciliation, to the text of 315B9. But frankly, the General Assembly could have just as easily included similar language in subsection B8 that says, quote, except when the DSIC rate is reset to zero. But it did not. And the fact that the General Assembly could have done either one of these things, but did not include either one, brings us right back to the beginning of this question. And that is interpreting 315 and its subsections in a manner that does not lead to one of these, quote, absurd or unreasonable outcomes. And so, in conclusion, to this point at least, the current reading of subsection B9 produces an unfair and unreasonable result, and it creates a situation that's going to guarantee that the actual cost of service related to DSIC is not recovered or refunded. And as discussed, there is no statutory support for that, and just plain fair dealing requires the Commission to reinterpret this and to be able to read these two subsections together. And that's what Delmarva is asking the Commission to do in adopting its interpretation of these subsections. Now, Your Honors, at the beginning I had mentioned that there are two questions here, and I propose dealing with them one at a time. If Your Honors want, I can pause here and we can hear from staff and DPA and answer questions on this topic, or I can continue and discuss how the over or under recovery should be calculated if the Commission adopts Delmarva's interpretation. I'm happy to take either course, whichever way the Commission would like to proceed.
Ms. Iori and Mr. O'Brien, do you both wish to hear the one argument first and then go on to the second, or do you have a different preference?
Chair Winslow, this is Bill O'Brien on behalf of staff, and from staff's view, we'd rather take that first issue first and then go on to the next ones.
Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow, Commissioners. The DPA agrees that it would be preferable to take this first question first, because if the Commission rules in favor of the interpretation advanced by staff and the DPA, there is no need to get to the second question.
Thank you. Mr. O'Brien, do you want to proceed with the argument on the first question?
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. As I said, Bill O'Brien on behalf of staff. I've got about 5 minutes of comments on this issue. So first, let me describe this disagreement from the 10,000-foot level. Delmarva has started to view the fundamental nature of the DSIC for accounting purposes as something that it is not and has never been. Delmarva now views the DSIC as a tracker mechanism that tracks costs and provides a dollar-for-dollar guaranteed cost recovery. We do have trackers here at the Commission which do guarantee a dollar-for-dollar cost recovery, like Delmarva's GCR, or the SOS fee, or environmental rate riders. Unfortunately, Delmarva has labeled the DSIC now as a tracker, which it very clearly is not. If you look at the Delmarva alternative order in the gas case, they state right in a whereas clause on page 3 that the reason they want to carry forward the over-under collection is because that would comport with other reconciliation methods implemented in Delaware. Based on our conversations with Delmarva, that would be the trackers I just mentioned. But the DSIC is not a tracker. Rather, the DSIC is a temporary revenue stream provided to utilities between rate cases so that they can begin recovering the costs of certain types of new investment before they come in for a rate case. But it's a temporary shot in the arm. It's not a continuing guarantee of all costs. Once that DSIC investment is recovered through base rates, the DSIC ends completely, all of it. Everyone agrees that the DSIC is reset to zero once that DSIC investment makes it into base rates, which is typically when the utility puts temporary base rates in effect during a rate case. But now Delmarva believes that reset to zero does not mean reset to zero. It now means reset to zero other than one component of the rate calculation. From a practical viewpoint, this makes very little sense. Under Delmarva's view, a utility with an undercollection at the time the DSIC is reset to zero would continue to collect the DSIC after a rate case, even if they have no new DSIC investment following that rate case. And if there's an overcollection, they would continue with a negative DSIC rate, I suppose, even though the DSIC rate was supposed to be reset to zero. They would continue to do this because there would still be that over or under collection on their books, which is only on their books because Delmarva now mistakenly views the DSIC as a tracker with guaranteed cost recovery. So why does staff not view the DSIC as a tracker? First, because the statute makes it clear that the DSIC is a temporary rate that may be charged, quote, between base rate filings, unquote. That's from the DSIC statute at section 315B7. Now, Delmarva focuses on 315B8, which describes the calculation of the DSIC rate and which includes a reconciliation of the over-under collection amount. That reconciliation certainly occurs, but only between base rate filings. Now, Delmarva just argued that staff's interpretation of B9 eliminates the reconciliation from B8. That couldn't be further from the truth. Certainly, that B8 reconciliation still occurs, but it's only in the context of the DSIC, which only occurs between base rate filings. So now B9 states that the DSIC rate is reset to zero once new base rates are in effect that provide for the recovery of the DSIC plant that had been recovered under the terminated DSIC rate. Base rates start, the DSIC rate ends. There's no stated carry forward of any component of the DSIC rate. The General Assembly could have said the reconciliation amount carries forward after the DSIC rate is reset to zero. After all, they had just specifically addressed the reconciliation mechanism in the section just before, but they did not say that anything carries forward. Now, you just heard Delmarva say that that argument could apply in reverse, looking at B8 and saying that the reconciliation is not reset to zero when the rest of the DSIC rate is reset to zero. Don't buy into that. The language reset to zero in B9 is plain and unambiguous. You can't argue with what reset to zero means. The language from B8, on the other hand, has a complicated methodology for calculating the DSIC rate itself. So it makes sense that they would stop with the calculation, which takes place between DSIC rates, and then in the very next section, tell us how the DSIC rate terminates once base rates reflect that same investment. So not only does the statute set this up as a temporary rate, but commission precedent aligns with the statute and holds that there is no carry forward of the over-under collection amount. With the Staff Council memo, we provided you with a copy of Commission Order Number 8971 from November 2016, which is a Delmarva Power case. In that order, the Commission stated that there will be no carry forward of the over-under collection because the cost of the investment was now being recovered in base rates. Delmarva Power stated on the record that they agreed with that order, even though they now say it leads to unreasonable or absurd results. That case dealt with Delmarva's UFRC rate, which was the precursor to the DSIC rate and which used identical statutory language. As a reminder, UFRC, or UFERC, stands for Utility Facility Relocation Charge. Not only is the statutory language the same, but the Commission's regulations regarding implementation of the UFERC rate and the DSIC rate are the same. So in addition to the statute and Commission precedent, we have years of practice, up to and including the recent Suez rate case, and including prior Delmarva cases, where over-unders have not been carried forward beyond the resetting of the DSIC or UFERC to zero. We're available for questions. Staff also has Joshua Bowman available for any of the more technical questions. Thank you very much, and we ask that the Commission adopt staff's proposed order number 9824.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. I will be even briefer than Mr. O'Brien was. The DPA wholeheartedly supports staff's interpretation of the interplay between the various sections of the DSIC statute. I would simply point out a few additional things. First, the cardinal rule of statutory interpretation is to determine the legislative intent, and if the language is clear, there is no room for interpretation. You just heard Mr. O'Brien explain why the statutory language is clear. So there is no room for interpretation, and what staff and the DPA are asking you to do is what you have done before and implement the legislature's clear intent. Secondly, if you look at the definition of DSIC rate, it means the entire DSIC rate as defined in 315A2. It does not break the rate down into component parts, but that is what Delmarva seeks to do here. Finally, I shouldn't say finally, third, I would point out, as Staff's Counsel pointed out in its memorandum to you, that the result that Delmarva claims is absurd occurs in the normal regulatory process, and has never been deemed absurd or unreasonable there. For example, when a utility is over collecting, or is earning greater than its authorized rate of return, when the utility is brought in for a rate case, we can't go back and true up what the utility had over collected. Similarly, when a utility is under collecting, they can't go back and in their current rates make up what they had failed to previously collect. As Mr. O'Brien points out, the DSIC is a temporary rate mechanism. It is not a guarantee of dollar-for-dollar recovery. Finally, if the Commission adopts Delmarva's current interpretation, every water utility that has eaten an under-collection since the DSIC was enacted for them will have been treated differently than Delmarva. Thank you, and I'm available for questions should the Commissioners or the Chairman have any.
Thank you very much, Ms. Iori. Mr. Jordan, a couple of minutes of rebuttal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And just a couple of points, and I'll start with staff's points. And thank you, Mr. O'Brien, and also to Ms. Iori for this argument. It's been quite nice. And the first thing I want to start out here is the argument about whether DSIC is a capital tracker or not. What I want to direct the Commission's attention to is the fact that it contains a reconciliation process right there in B8. So whatever it's called, the General Assembly certainly intended that there would be some sort of reconciliation of expected versus actual revenues. So that's the first point. The second one, as to what's in Section B, that section is about the limit on the percent increase that a utility is entitled to with DSIC, 5% annually, 7.5% total. As for B8 and the interplay between B8 and B9, as I mentioned in the beginning, there really is no language that splits B8 into separate components the way that it's advocated for by staff. I mean, we're dealing with specific statutory language that follows that word shall, and so it's got to be followed. And that leads me into my comments on Ms. Iori's arguments that starting at the end, that this is the practice that goes on throughout the industry, and that earnings greater than authorized rate of return don't get pulled back in. But as we know, those aren't trackers with reconciliations. But more importantly, what we're talking about here, and I'm going to draw the Commission's attention straight back to the statutory language of B8. We have a statute that says that this recouping of an under recovery or refunding of an over recovery is in the actual statutory language, and that's what has got to be followed in this situation. So with that in mind, what we're asking for is that the Commission, again, read B9 and B8 and B7 and the entire district statute as one harmonious whole, and that recognizes that there are situations where, under the current interpretation, we have a reconciliation process that implies some of the time. What Delmarva's perspective is that reconciliation process, by the statutory language and by fair play, applies all of the time. And so if there's an under recovery, it should be included in the district rate to be recovered. If there's an over recovery, it should be included and get refunded to the ratepayer, Your Honors. And that's where I'll end my argument. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jordan. Mr. Geddes, would you be kind enough to advise the commissioners whether or not there's previous precedent that may be binding on them regarding this issue?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I believe, as counsel for staff has indicated, that there is. He has cited it in his memo. I believe Ms. Iori has also referred to it. Clearly, in the water context, and specifically Suez, which I think has been pointed out in both memos, the interpretation of the two subsections that have been referred to by Delmarva as well as by DPA and staff clearly have been interpreted and applied in a way that would not support Delmarva's argument. And Mr. O'Brien, in his comments to you, also referred to the utilities relocation portion of the statute, which is identical to the DSIC in which Delmarva participated. I think it was in the 2016 case, where the same interpretation supported by the DPA and staff counsel was applied. And so I think the Commission's precedent, if that's a specific question, is clearly consistent with the arguments that staff counsel and the DPA counsel have articulated, and not consistent with Delmarva's argument, although a good one. I don't think it's consistent with your prior practice or consistent with the clear language of the statute.
Thank you, Mr. Geddes. Commissioners, do you have any questions of the parties or of Mr. Geddes?
Mr. Chair, this is Commissioner Gray. If I understand the context of the arguments, I find the staff and the DPA arguments to be substantially persuasive, as well as the clarification from Mr. Geddes. I also make a statement. If I get this wrong, I hope that my counsel will correct me. But in base rate making cases, I believe there's a substantial amount of reconciliations at play. And so I also understand and recall the decisions we've made with the water companies, as has been mentioned. So I'm prepared to move that the proposed order number 9824 be adopted as submitted.
Is there a second?
Second.
Yes, this is
Commissioner
Kim.
Conaway.
Second by Commissioner Conaway. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries. We will consider the second question, Mr. Jordan.
Your Honor, thank you. I don't think we even reached the second question in light of the Commission's decision just now. because the second question was going to be sort of piggybacked on whether or not the commission accepted Delmarva's interpretation. And if the commission, since the commission has not accepted Delmarva's interpretation, there is no argument over how that under collection should be calculated, because it's now a nullity. It doesn't exist as part of the DSIC rate. And I'm certainly happy to defer to Mr. O'Brien and Ms. Iori if they agree with that position, or if they have a contrary position. But I believe that's where we are here.
Yeah, I agree. For the record, you've stated it. And also, Mr. O'Brien, do you agree with Mr. Jordan?
I do agree. Thank you.
Ms. Iori?
Yes, Chairman Winslow, thank you.
Thank you all. Okay.
And Your Honor, if I could just perhaps help with the commission's understanding of the charts in front of it, because this now narrows down significantly the number of proposed orders in front of the commission. So with the commission's decision, it now moves into the second box on that filing. The last two entries that start 10B1-DPL and 10B1- staff's proposed order, and then in parens is the word electric. I believe those are the only two orders left to consider, and that will lead the commission to the next agenda and to Ms. Kurtz-Crompton.
Do you have any comments on those orders? Do you have any comments on those orders, Mr. Jordan?
Yeah, I have a comment. This is Bill O'Brien from staff, and I hope I'm looking at this right, but my understanding, and I'm asking Delmarva and DPA to say whether they agree with me. My understanding is that we can move to the next docket number. I believe that proposed order 9824 from staff has been issued or has been voted on, and so that takes care of the second issue for gas, which then ends that docket. We can now move into electric, and I don't know if that means a new transcript, but certainly we can announce that we're into the new docket. And then I do agree with Mr. Jordan that once we get into that new docket, we have two alternatives to consider. Thanks.
Mr. Jordan?
Agreed, Your Honor. It does take us to the electric docket, which is 21-0409, and that's agenda item number 2.
We will proceed with that item. Mr. Jordan? Or is it, no, I'm sorry, it'll be Ms. Dawn Kurtz-Crompton.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate your time this afternoon, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. This is Dawn Kurtz-Crompton on behalf of Delmarva Power and Light Company. Now that the Commission has decided the issues in the gas filing, the only issue remaining pertains to a $752,311 overcollection, which is set forth in Schedule 1D of Delmarva's electric DSIC filing that was filed on May 28th. As set forth in our application, Delmarva is proposing to return the overcollection to customers now, but staff and DPA have advised that Delmarva needs to wait until next year to give the money back. By way of brief background, as you may recall, earlier this year, the company identified a missing accrual in our general ledger with respect to the November 2020 filing for DSIC in docket 20-0803, which had caused Delmarva to set the January 1, 2021 DSIC rate too high. As a result of that, on March 31 of this year, Delmarva came to this commission and sought permission to reset the electric DSIC rate to 0 so that we could promptly cease that overcollection. On March 31, the commission issued order 9771 in that docket, which allowed the rate to be set to 0 as of April 1, 2021. Final whereas clause in order number 9771 states that, quote, Delmarva shall address the issue in its May 2021 DSIC filing, close quote. Turning now to the present docket, which is 21-0409. As stated in our May 28th electric application, we are now seeking permission from the Commission to return The January through March 2021 overcollection, we want to return that to ratepayers and in an expeditious manner, which is in furtherance of the Commission's ruling in Order 9771. Given that the pandemic has created hardships for many Delawareans, the company proposes to return the approximately $750,000 overcollection in this filing, effective July 1 of this year, rather than wait until July of 2022 to return the funds. Delmarva believes that its interpretation and accounting adjustment is an appropriate application of the statute and one which is specifically in furtherance of Order 9771. Accordingly, we are asking this commission to employ the same rationale here to allow Delmarva to more promptly rectify the overcollection situation, as indicated in the order. In late May, Delmarva met with staff and DPA to discuss this issue, and they both advised that they oppose the company's proposal on the basis that the accounting treatment does not comply with 26 Del C 315B8. This is the same statute that the parties were discussing in the last docket. DPA then sent a letter to the Commission on June 15, 2021, addressing this discrete issue, which stated that, quote, Delmarva may not want to comply with the statutory language, close quote. I want to be clear here that Delmarva agrees that the statute requires an annual true-up, and Delmarva will certainly comply with Commission order requiring Delmarva to hold on to these funds for another year. Moreover, Delmarva is not trying to avoid the annual reconciliation as set forth in the statute. Indeed, this $750,000 overcollection pertains only to January through March of this year, and no matter what the Commission decides today, a full year reconciliation will still occur after the end of this year once Delmarva has finalized its actuals. Where DPA and Delmarva diverge with respect to statutory interpretation is that the statute does not expressly disallow Delmarva's proposed accounting treatment. Indeed, there have been at least 2 instances in the near past where certain accounting mechanisms have occurred that are not expressly set forth by the DSIC statute. And that's exactly what we're seeking to do here, which is more akin to an application of the statute with respect to the administrative processes for the DSIC calculation. So, for example, in November of 2019, in the application for docket number 17-0792, Delmarva has self-identified modifications to 2 prior dockets for an overstatement of $30,578. Neither staff nor DPA objected to that return mechanism, which was filed during a November filing, and it was approved by the Commission in Order 9514. By way of additional example, as stated in DPA's letter on page 3, footnote 8, staff employs a mechanism for a 6-month refund of an overcollection rather than the 12-month period set forth in Section 315BA. To be clear, staff's mechanism is not expressly permitted by the statute. It's an application of that statute. So Delmarva is not seeking relief with respect to staff's 6-month versus 12-month mechanism, and we are not trying to relitigate the past. The only point we are trying to make is that there is nothing in the statute that forbids the accounting treatment as applied here, especially so under the present circumstances when it would inure to the customer's immediate benefit to the tune of $750,000. And while the statute may be silent on this issue, Order 9771 is not. Indeed, the order specifically indicated that, quote, Delmarva shall address the issue in its May 2021 DSIC filing, and that is precisely what we're trying to do here by returning the customer's money as promptly as possible. In closing, Delmarva is simply asking permission to return the estimated overcollection now in furtherance of PSC's Order 9771. Again, there is nothing in the statute that expressly forbids Delmarva from making such a proposal to the Commission for its consideration, and Delmarva still intends to comply with the black letter of the law with respect to the annual reconciliation. Indeed, Delmarva's proposed course of action would be the most beneficial for customers and is the most sensible for the company to propose under the circumstances. I thank the Commission for its consideration and am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much.
You're muted.
Thank you very much. Mr. O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair Winslow and Commissioners. Bill O'Brien on behalf of staff. Just very briefly about an earlier situation that Delmarva just described when staff had recommended a 6-month recovery of an undercollection for Delmarva. Staff believes that is not inconsistent with the statute. And in fact, the reason they were doing that was because had they spread it out evenly over all 12 months, then Delmarva would not have been able to collect all of the undercollection because we were about to set new base rates and the DSIC would be reset to 0. So staff did that in an effort to help Delmarva and mitigate the effects of the resetting of the DSIC to 0. But the important thing is staff does not think that that violates the statute. The statute simply protects the ratepayers and the company by saying it all has to be refunded or recouped within a year, and in this case it was. Staff just weighted it to the first half of the year rather than spreading it evenly over the entire year. But unfortunately, staff cannot make the same interpretation under the current issue before the commission. We certainly understand what Delmarva is doing and in no way, shape, or form fault them for making this request. But simply as stated in our memo and in our proposed order 9825, we just don't think that the statute at B8 allows for this estimated refund to be provided at this point in time. It requires that the refund be based on the audited annual period, and that annual period has not been completed in this case yet. It's simple. It's as simple as that. Otherwise, we support the public advocate's position in this matter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. Ms. Iori?
Thank you, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. If there is noise, I apologize. I've shut all my doors and windows, but the lawn people just arrived. Bad timing. I first want to say that if we were writing on a blank slate, the DPA would absolutely support Delmarva's request here. It is not the DPA's general modus operandi to keep ratepayers from getting monies that they may be entitled to. But the problem is that we don't have a blank slate here. What we have is a statute. Now, I will also apologize profusely for falling down on the job with respect to the order that you entered, 9771, that Ms. Kurtz-Crompton referred to. I was in the throes of briefing Delmarva's rate case at the time, did not give it the attention that it should have, that I should have given it at that time, because if I had, I would have been making this argument to you then instead of making it to you now. But here we are. The previous cases that Ms. Kurtz-Crompton referred to and that Mr. O'Brien addressed, those cases are not before you, so I won't go into them except to say that the DPA might have a difference of opinion as to whether it was allowed or not. But that ship has sailed. Here we have a statute that specifically says how the utility is to recoup an undercollection or refund an overcollection. And what that section, which is 315B8, requires is an audit so that you have actual numbers, so that you know exactly how much is going to be recouped or refunded. What we have here, however, are estimates. We don't know what the actual numbers are going to be. By the time we get to the end of the calendar year, which is the basis on which the calculation, the reconciliation is to be made, that number could change. So we don't have exact numbers here, and that is what the statute requires. So while the DPA would certainly prefer to refund the monies back to ratepayers now, we believe that under the clear terms of the statute, that the commission's hands are tied and that they cannot do that. The agency only has the powers that the General Assembly has given to it, and the General Assembly has set forth a specific procedure for an annual reconciliation of overcollections or undercollections. And so, again, therefore, we don't believe that the statute leads to an absurd or an unreasonable result. The mandate to use actual results at the end of a calendar year to perform the reconciliation is both rational and sensible. We would urge the commission to approve staff's proposed form of order 9825. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Iori. Mr. Geddes, the statute in question is supposed to be, one of the reasons for it is to benefit the ratepayers, correct?
I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. I think, not answering your question directly, it is a mechanism, if you will, for the company between base rate cases to recover certain amounts of investment that qualify under the statute.
But it does permit...
And the opinion as to who that benefits, I guess, is up to the person reading the statute.
But in this particular circumstance, it's obviously to the benefit of the ratepayer to get the money now rather than wait a considerable period of time for their money. Correct?
Well, I would say as Ms. Iori, I believe, stated in her introductory comments, on a clean slate, I would agree. If this application to return the money based on an error was not perhaps subject to a specific statute, then the general would control. But in this case, as Ms. Iori pointed out, and I believe Mr. O'Brien demurred to, the application is under the statute. And specifically, the statute says that the reconciliation is not to be based on estimates, but on 12 months of actuals. And so that the amount that's being refunded or collected does not have to be recalculated again. So to the extent that the application to refund these monies based on an error, it is controlled by the specifics. And I believe B8 clearly states the basis on which those monies should be refunded, and they should not be refunded based on estimates.
Chair Winslow, this is Dawn Crompton. May I respond briefly?
Yes, you certainly can.
I would just like to point out that there's been much discussion with Mr. Geddes, Ms. Iori, and a little bit from Mr. O'Brien with respect to the reconciliation mechanism set forth in the statute. And I want to make clear that Delmarva is not seeking to bypass that annual reconciliation mechanism. That will occur next year as it would in any other year. But this $750,000 will just be included in that calculus. This is an estimate, but we will include that estimate in the actual calculus once the numbers have been audited and so on and so forth, so that this can all get washed out appropriately. All that we're seeking to do is, to your point, Your Honor, is just to return the money more expeditiously to the customers in furtherance of Order 9771. So that's just the one point that I would like to make, is that nothing that Delmarva is proposing here, we are not saying that there is anything absurd or inappropriate about the statute in connection with this argument. We are saying that we are willing to comply with the statute. We will comply and continue to comply with the statute. We just think that this mechanism, this accounting treatment that we are proposing, is appropriate under the circumstances and in furtherance of this commission's order. Thank you, Your Honor.
Chairman Winslow, may I have a brief rejoinder on that?
How could I ever say no to you? Please, go ahead.
Well, you have in the past. That's why I asked. Thank you. Ms. Kurtz-Crompton only gave you part of the statute. The other part of the statute specifically says with the difference between revenue received and eligible costs for the period recouped or refunded as appropriate over a one-year period commencing July 1 of each year. So yes, while they may include in their calculation the actual number, the statute also specifically says when and how the recoupment or the refund is to take place. And it is to take place over a one-year period commencing July 1 of each year. The statutory language is clear. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
This is Commissioner Gray again. I have heard, again, both arguments, and in one case, I think from the Delmarva's perspective, it's under the circumstances, where I think I've heard from staff and DPA that it's under the statute, and I, for one, would prefer to make a motion to adopt order number 9825 in as much as I believe that to be under the statute.
Is there a second?
I will second the motion. This is Commissioner Karia.
Does anybody have any comments they want to make?
This is Commissioner Gray again, just briefly. I, more than anyone, am empathetic with the circumstance of the ratepayer. It would be all better for all if the basis of determination in the future were more accurately discerned, such that we weren't in a position to have this conversation about ratepayers quickly getting refunded. But if I am given the choice between under the circumstances, I would defer and prefer under the statute, because different circumstances the next time may propagate a completely different solution, and it will ultimately either violate the statute or be very difficult to manage. That's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments to make on the motion? I do. I'm not going to support the motion. I'd like to do what the reasonable thing, in my humble opinion, would be to do, which is to return the money to the ratepayers, and then do a true up at the annual, at the time, so to speak. So I'm not going to support the motion. Any other comments? Okay, Commissioner Correa.
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway.
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler.
Aye.
Commissioner Gray.
Aye.
I vote no. The motion carries. Number 3, in the matter of the application of Veolia Environmental SA, etc., proposed order number 9831, we have, and I apologize, Joseph Scholl on behalf of the applicant.
Yes, good afternoon, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. Thank you for having us. I am here on behalf of applicants Veolia Environment SA and Veolia North America, Inc. Ms. Scott is also on the line for Suez SA and Suez Water Delaware. And I am joined by my co-counsel, Ade Bakari and Teresa Harold of the McNeese Wallace firm. Earlier on your agenda, you admitted Mr. Bakari and Ms. Harold pro hoc vice, and with your indulgence, I'd like to ask Mr. Bakari to say a few words about the application and where we are.
Yes, sir.
Excuse me for interrupting, please, Mr. Chairman. This is Commissioner Gray. With significant apologies, I have to have a hard stop for a very important legal counseling meeting, and I just want to make sure that you still have remaining quorum, sir, and I have your permission to withdraw.
we have a quorum, and I understand, and yes, you are free to depart.
Thank you very much. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Chairman, can Mr. Bakari proceed at this point?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chairman Winslow and Commissioners. As Mr. Scholl mentioned, my name is Ade Bakare. I'm a partner at the law firm of McNeese Walson Nurick, based out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Very pleased to have been admitted pro hoc vice to appear before your honors. I'm joined here by my colleague, Teresa Harold, and we want to thank you all for the opportunity to speak here today. As you know, we filed a joint application between Veolia and Suez parties seeking commission approval of an indirect change in control of Suez Water Delaware, Inc., back on June 11th. I'm just going to give a brief recitation of what the application asked for. Specifically, we requested approval of the transfer of control of Suez Water Delaware, Inc. from the current corporate parent, Suez S.A., to Veolia Environnement S.A. Particularly during these extraordinary times in 2021, we appreciate the attention of the Commission and its staff to this matter. We're going to endeavor to be as responsive and timely as possible in addressing questions from the Commission or the public advocate throughout the process set forth in the proposed schedule that's before your honors today. And with that, I will turn it back to the chairman for any questions you have of myself or Ms. Harold.
Sir, would you be kind enough to spell your name for the record?
Certainly. The first name is Adeolu, and then the last name is B as in boy, Akare.
Thank you, sir.
Certainly.
That's the do we have Ms. Scott available as well?
Yes, Chair Winslow, I am here.
So do you have any comments you wish to make?
I do not have anything to add other than to indicate that the order, the form of order that we have worked on with staff and DPA is acceptable to Suez. As with most orders of this type, it sets forth the appointment of the hearing examiner. It sets forth the date for interveners. It establishes the time frame for public notice and attaches a proposed form of schedule. So it is acceptable from Suez's standpoint, and I would urge the commissioners to adopt it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Mr. Geddes, on behalf of staff.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, it rarely happens, but I adopt every word of Ms. Scott's presentation in support of the motion. Staff supports the form of motion, which would open up the docket to further investigate the potential merger as set forth in the order and the notice. Thank you.
Ms. Iori.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take over from Ms. Iori.
You sound a little bit different to me, Ms. Iori.
Yeah. Likewise, the DPA supports the proposed order 9831. Thank you.
Mr. Bakare, we believe that everything you said was just terrific too, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. And I actually was remiss in not specifically thanking the PSC staff and the public advocate staff in assisting us and in working with us to develop the proposed schedule. So we appreciate the efforts of staff to date in working with the companies to develop that schedule that's before your honors.
Thank you, sir. Commissioners, are there any questions of the parties? Commissioner Drexler, may we have a motion, please?
Yes, I move approval of order number 9831 as presented.
May we have a second?
This is Commissioner Karia. I second.
Commissioner Correa seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, Commissioner Correa, your vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Conaway?
Aye.
Commissioner Drexler?
Aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Scott and Mr. Baccarat.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next matter on the calendar is the hearing schedule, and that is devoid of any items. And after that, we have the public comment session. And is there anybody on the telephone that wishes to make any public comment to the Public Service Commission? Hearing none, Mr. Matt
Thank you,
Hardigan?
Chairman Winslow. My only comment is our next meeting will be July 14th. I do want to note that the governor's emergency order regarding COVID-19 expires the day before that meeting, so our meeting will be in person.
Commissioner Correa, Commissioner Conaway, Commissioner Drexler, we will see you all on July the 14th. Thanks.
Yes, sir. We will be there.
Okay.
See you then.
We're now adjourned.